Unless you trust somebody, you're going to struggle to be influenced by them. You're going to find it difficult to accept what they're saying. You'll want to verify it. And it's exactly the same with your stakeholders. So the second part of this module about becoming an exceptional influencer of stakeholders is to build trust at every turn. And to begin with, you've got to understand how trust functions, the process of trust within any given relationship. And in summary, it works like this, that two new people get together. Initially, they have a view, a preconceived notion of how much trust they should award the other person. So maybe if they're a marketing person or a salesperson or a compliance person, they'll already have that stereotypical pigeonhole sort of view of how much they're able to trust that person. And then they get to talk and they start listening, they start understanding where the other person is coming from, and they modify that initial position on trust depending on how they experience that person. And as the conversation goes, the relationship starts to build, they will begin to offer more information of a more sensitive nature, but it will happen gradually, because what they'll be interested in doing is finding out what the other person is going to do with that, how they're going to respond to that. And what they're also looking for is for that other person to then start to disclose a little bit more intimate information in return. So they'll share a bit, they're looking for another bit to be shared. They're looking for their confidence to be, their trust to be rewarded, to be respected, to be honoured, and they're looking for trust to come back the other way as well. And as the relationship progresses, the level of disclosure will grow. And that's how it works in a normal, natural relationship where trust is growing at a healthy rate. Doing too much too soon can create problems. So make sure you understand how trust can build, because once you do, you can expedite it, you can make it happen, you can manage it in such a way to make it happen faster. But there's a number of other things that I want you to really remember, because they are absolutely critical in helping to maximise the level of trust that you get within these relationships. The first one is to make sure to be prepared to disclose your hand, to be able to be the first one to trust, to say, well, look, to be honest, this is where I'm coming from, this is what I'm trying to achieve, this is why. Now, you've got to be careful when you do that, but by doing that, that indicates that you are awarding trust to that stakeholder, and they'll notice that. If only at a subconscious level, they will respect that, and chances are they will start to respond to that. The next thing to do is to make sure when you're making a request to give a balanced view of the pros and cons for the stakeholder. Don't just give the good news, don't just give all the benefits that they could give, because they won't believe it. It's not believable. There must be a downside at some point to what it is you're asking them to do. And if you are prepared to risk your influence with the stakeholder by saying, look, and this is where it's going to really hurt you, then you're going to gain a lot more respect and a lot more trust. And I think it's really important that you start to do that, because that builds that confidence in them that they can open their heart to you as well. The next thing is to be able to, and this takes some doing, really put your agenda to one side. Yes, I know it's really important for you. You want to get things done. But the more you can put your agenda one side and tune into what the stakeholder is actually saying and really listen at a deep level, the more they will recognize that, the more they will recognize that, hey, he really understands where I'm coming from on this. And that's really important in helping to build more trust. The other thing you can do is to really be hard on yourself. Are you acting in a trustworthy way? If you say you're going to do something for a stakeholder, maybe by delivering a piece of information by a particular day, do you do that? Or do other things get in the way and then the stakeholder doesn't get what they want, and maybe a couple of days later you do turn up with it? That's not good form when it comes to building trust. If you say you're going to do something for a stakeholder, do it. And there are many other ways that you could potentially be letting down yourself in the trust building stage. So make sure and be very, very ruthless with yourself to root out where these little things might be getting in the way. Another thing is that, inevitably in the cut and thrust of organisational life, things are going to go wrong, and from time to time people are going to perhaps lose their trust in you. Maybe you've done something for another stakeholder that contradicts what you said you were going to do for that stakeholder, and so trust can come into question. Even if your reporting line changes, that can start to damage trust. So make sure to stay alert that if trust is being eroded, you are proactive in attempting to rebuild that, to restore restore that stakeholder's confidence in your trustworthiness, to rebuild, and patch it up quick. Don't let it fester. For God's sake, don't let it fester. Make sure you're on the money with it, on the proactive front to go and actually make this happen. And the final thing is, and this is quite an interesting one. I mean, somebody asked me a little while ago how to give bad news to a stakeholder. What you want to be aiming for with your stakeholder relationships, particularly the most important ones, is that you never have to give bad news. What you're really doing, because of the strength of the relationship, because of the trust that you've got there, you're just sharing what is going on so that we can work out what to do for the best. And therefore you don't have to feel that apprehension that you're about to give a bad message to somebody and they're not going to like it. You already know how they're going to respond to it, and you already know how you're going to be able to start working through it with the stakeholder. That's the ultimate, that's exceptional stakeholder management in my book.